Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bharata Sevaya
Prabhuji.
Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtike. So continuing with the discussion on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, text 120 onwards. So this is all Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking to all the sannyasis from the disciples of Prakashan and Saraswati, followers, in Banaras. So he is giving, because they all wanted to hear Tattva from Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu is giving his Vaishnava Tattva to them. Hena Jiva Tattva Laya Likhi Para Tattva Achana Karila Shrestha Ishvara Mahatva. The Mayavad philosophy is so degraded that it has taken the insignificant living entities to be the Lord, the supreme truth, thus covering the glory and supremacy of the absolute truth with monism or Advaita. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments in this connection that in all Vedic scriptures, the Jiva Tattva, the truth of the living entities, is mentioned to be one of the energies of the Lord. If one does not accept the living entity to be a minute, infinitesimal spark of the Supreme, but equates the Jiva Tattva with the Supreme Brahman or Supreme Personality of Godhead, it must be understood that his entire philosophy is based on a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, Srila Shankaracharya purposely claimed the Jiva Tattva, or living entities, to be equal to the Supreme God. Therefore, his entire philosophy is based on a misunderstanding, and it misguides people to become atheists whose mission in life is unfulfilled. So the mission of human life, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, is to surrender unto the Supreme Lord and become his devotee. But the Mayavad philosophy misleads one to define the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and pose oneself as the Supreme Lord. Thus, it has misguided hundreds of thousands of innocent men. And actually, today somehow I came across a video, and it was one very senior, I would say, Mayavadi sannyasi, follower of Shankaracharya, and he was having his questions answers with his congregation. And one boy got up and he said, ISKCON always puts down Mayavadi, and they call us Mayavadis, and puts on Mayavadi philosophy or Shankaracharya's philosophy. And now that sannyasi or Guruji, he started speaking. He said, well, then I have read Srila Prabhupada, and yes, he puts on Shankaracharya, but they themselves go against their own Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu took sannyas in Shankaracharya line from Keshav Bharti. So Mahaprabhu was following this and then, but they don't understand why Mahaprabhu took sannyas from Keshav Bharti, not just because he was, he liked the philosophy or he liked the Mayavad Tattva. It was the need of the hour at that time. He himself, look at his conversation with Prakashan and Saraswati and others. He's putting down the Mayavad philosophy. Mahaprabhu he came in this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, but he has given a new line in this Sampradaya, given his Achintya Bhedabhe Tattva. So all this is, so we understand why follow Mahaprabhu, why follow Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and if we ever come across any Mayavadi philosophy, at least we should know what we are doing, even if we cannot convince him, or we should know what we are doing and why we are doing. In the Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva has described that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is potent, and that everything, material or spiritual, is but an emanation of his energy. The Lord, the Supreme Brahman, is the origin or source of everything. Janmadhyasya yata. And all other manifestations are emanations of different energies of the Lord. This is also confirmed in Vishnu Purana. Whatever we see in this world is simply an expansion of different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is exactly like a fire that spreads illumination for a long distance, although it is situated in one place. This is a very vivid example. Similarly, it is stated that just as everything in the material world exists in the sunshine, which is energy of the sun, so everything exists on the basis of the spiritual and material energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything exists on the spiritual and material energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Krishna is situated in his own abode, Golokeva Nivasati, where he enjoys his transcendental pastimes with the cowherd boys and gopis, he is nevertheless present everywhere, even within the atoms of this universe. But see, he is there and he's here also, even within every atom of the universe. That doesn't mean because he is in every atom of the universe, he has lost his original form. Unfortunately, the Mayavad philosophy, misguiding people by claiming the living entity to be the Lord, has created havoc throughout the entire world and led almost everyone to godlessness. By thus covering the glories of the Supreme Lord, the Mayavadi philosophers have done the greatest disservice to human society. It is to counteract these most abominable activities of the Mayavadi philosophers that Lord Chaitanya has introduced the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam eva kevalam, kalau nastev, nastev, nastev gatiranyatha. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. People should simply engage in chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, for thus they will gradually come to understand that they are not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as they have been taught by the Mayavadi philosophers, but are eternal servants of the Lord. As soon as one engages himself in the transcendental service of the Lord, he becomes free. But this service of the Lord is transcendental and is eternal service. It's eternal service. Not that we are going to become God and then we give up the service. That is my philosophy. Prabhupada further comments, quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatiti haitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Therefore, the Hare Krishna movement or Krishna consciousness movement is the only light for the foolish living entity. So think either that there is no God or that if God exists, he is formless and they themselves are also God. These misconceptions are very dangerous, and the only way to counteract them is to spread the Hare Krishna movement. I know these things we have to read over and over again before it just sits in our heart, in our mind, and then we will not get confused. Just like once some Mayavadi person came to meet Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, we knew he was a very heavy preacher. Preaching, when it came to preaching, he didn't He didn't shy away from anything. So I believe it was in India when he came, in Bombay probably. So Prabhupada was sitting on his, not on a table chair, but on the floor, on a cushion, and in front of him was this writing desk, and that the Mayavadi was sitting on the other side of the desk. So he was giving his arguments, Prabhupada was giving his arguments, and he was saying everything is one, Aham Brahmasmi, and this and that. So all of a sudden, Prabhupada reached across the table and caught hold of him by his collar. No, he didn't get her, not yet. Prabhupada asked him, "You're wearing this cotton shirt. Is there a difference between cotton ball and cotton shirt?" Cotton ball is from where there's a flower of cotton ball, and from where they make the cotton thread and then they make the shirt. And he kept on arguing in different ways. Prabhupada again asked him, little louder, "Is there a difference between cotton ball and cotton shirt?" He didn't answer the question. He kept going in his own way. Prabhupada reached over the desk, writing desk, and grabbed hold of his collars from his neck. "Is there a difference between cotton ball and cotton shirt?" The Mayavadis would say everything is one, they're same. But there is difference. Yes, they are same in the sense, yes, both are cotton, but there is difference. We cannot wear a cotton ball. We have to wear a cotton shirt. So then he understood what Prabhupada was trying to say. So their philosophy is very confusing, if you look deeply. Just like in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was there, and disciples, they would go and preach and do Sankirtan. And it was in the colder days, maybe in December, January. And there are so many Mayavadi sadhus, they roam around. So one Mayavadi sadhu, they came to the devotees and they started talking about the philosophy. And that Mayavadi sadhu said, he had this blanket. Oh, we are one, everything is one, and this and that. Then this devotee, they did what? They took out one small thread from that blanket, woolen blanket. He said, "You say everything is one, so why don't you have this thread and instead of the blanket and sleep under it?" Everything is not one. This thread and the blanket, they're one and they're different. The size-wise, they're different. But and also, and that Mayavadi was, "We all are one, you and I, we are one," and this and that. Then these devotees say, "Okay, give us your money if we are one. So there's no difference. Why you are having all the money? Give us the money." And then he ran away. Mm-hmm. So it just sounds very nice. Oh, we are one, we all are one. Well, we are one in the sense we are spirit souls. But is every spirit soul at the same consciousness level? No. And if we go further, is every spirit soul has the same relationship with Krishna? No. Every spirit soul is unique and has unique relationship with Krishna and gives that unique pleasure to Krishna. Now that we all are one, it just sounds very lofty idea, but doesn't make sense. Vyasera sutrete kahe parinamavad vyasa bhranta balitar uthaila vivada. In his Vedanta Sutra, Srila Vyasadeva has described that everything is but a transformation of the energy of the Lord. Shankaracharya, however, has misled the word by commenting that Vyasadeva was mistaken. Thus, he has raised great opposition to theism throughout the entire world. Again, long purport, because Prabhupada wants us to understand these points very, very clearly. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, in the Vedanta Sutra of Srila Vyasadeva, it is definitely stated that all cosmic manifestations result from transformations of various energies of the Lord. Shankaracharya, however, not accepting the energy of the Lord, thinks that it is the Lord who is transformed. He has taken many clear statements from the Vedic literature and twisted them to try to prove that if the Lord or the absolute truth were transformed, his oneness would be disturbed. Thus, he has accused Srila Vyasadeva of being mistaken. In developing his philosophy of monism, therefore, he has established Vivartavad. Now, Vad means when we discuss something, or the Mayavad theory of illusion. Vad means just like we do Vad Vivad, discuss or argue on something. So, whatever Vyasadeva said, it was Parinam Vad, but Shankaracharya said Vivarth Vad. Different terms and different types of arguments. In the Brahma Sutra, second chapter, the first aphorism is as follows: Tad ananyatvam arambhan shabdadibhya. Commenting on this sutra in his Sharirak Bhashya, Shankaracharya has introduced a statement, Vacharambhanam vikaro namadhyam, from the Chandogya Upanishad, to try to prove that acceptance of the transformation of the energy of the Supreme Lord is faulty. He has tried to define this transformation of energy in a misguided way, which will be explained later. Since his conception of God is impersonal, he does not believe that the entire cosmic manifestation is a transformation of the energies of the Lord. For as soon as one accepts the various energies of the Absolute Truth, one must immediately accept the Absolute Truth to be personal, not impersonal. So if energy of the energetic, so energetic has to be person, because then only somebody can have energies. A person can create many things by the transformation of his energy. For example, a businessman transforms his energy by establishing many big factories or business organizations. Yet he remains a person, although his energy has been transformed into these many factories or business concerns. The Mayavadi philosophers do not understand the simple fact. Their tiny brains and poor fund of knowledge cannot afford them sufficient enlightenment to realize that when a man's energy is transformed, the man himself is not transformed, but remains the same person. But Mayavadi say the Supreme Lord has transformed. He has lost his identity of personality because he is transformed into so many infinitesimal particles. Not believing in the fact that the energy of the Absolute Truth is transformed, Shankaracharya has propounded this theory of illusion. This theory states that although the Absolute Truth is never transformed, we think that it is transformed, which is an illusion. Shankaracharya does not believe in the transformation of the energy of the Absolute Truth, for he claims that everything is one, and that the living entity is therefore also one with the Supreme. This is the Mayavad theory. Srila Vyasadeva has explained that the Absolute Truth is a person who has different potencies. Merely by his desire that there be creation, and by his glance, akshata, he created this material world, so asrujata. After creation, he remains the same person. He is not transformed into everything. One should accept that the Lord has inconceivable energies and that it is by his order and will that varieties of manifestations have come into existence. In the Vedic literature, it is said, Sa tattvato anyatha buddhir vikarati udaharita. Okay, more and more technical stuff Prabhupada has given. What basically he is saying is, Lord does not transform into anything. He remains as it is. Even though everything, his energy and everything that we see is a transformation of his energy. So further on, Prabhupada says, Sripad Ramanujacharya, however, refers to a sutra from Aitreya Upanishad, Atma va idam agra asit, which points out that the supreme Atma, the absolute truth, existed before the creation. One may argue, if the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely spiritual, how is it possible for him to be the origin of creation and have within himself both material and spiritual energies? To answer this challenge, Sripad Ramanujacharya quotes a mantra from the Taittiriya Upanishad that states, Yato vaimani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yata prayanti avisham vishanti. This mantra confirms that the entire cosmic manifestation emanates from the Absolute Truth, rests upon the Absolute Truth, and after annihilation, again re-enters the body of the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is originally spiritual, and when he enters the spiritual world or the body of the Supreme Lord, he still retains his identity as an individual soul. So when he enters the body of the Supreme Lord, means at the time of dissolution. We enter in the body of the Lord Mahavishnu, and then we come back again when the creation takes place. In this connection, Sripad Ramanujacharya gives the example that when a green bird enters a green tree, it does not become one with the tree. It retains its identity as a bird, although it appears to merge with the greenness of the tree. To give another example, an animal that enters a forest keeps its individuality, although apparently the beast merges with the forest. Apparently, because it doesn't merge, it remains as the animal. Similarly, in the material existence, both the material energy and the living entities of the marginal potency maintain their individuality. Thus, although the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead interact within the cosmic manifestation, each keeps its separate individual existence. Merging with the material or spiritual energies, therefore, does not involve loss of individuality. So obviously, all these different Vaishnava acharyas, they have given their line, their understanding, their own way of understanding, and given their way of Vaishnava philosophy. And actually not anymore, but at that time when Ramanujacharya was there, and Madhvacharya and Shankaracharya had just left, when all these acharyas came into picture, there would be really big fights between Mayavadis or Shankara's followers and even Ramanujacharya. He was Ramanujacharya. Who is he? Lakshman himself, Ram Anuja, Anuja of Ram. Lakshmanji himself came as Ramanujacharya. And there would be fights, really fights. And someday when we get a chance to study the life history of Ramanujacharya, his disciples, Koresh and another disciple, they were really tortured by the kings who followed Shankara's philosophy. And Madhvacharya is wind god himself, or sometimes they say it's incarnation of Bhima. And he was really, really powerful as Bhima. But still, there would be big fights, literal fights. Nowadays, hardly anybody knows the real philosophy, and because of the laws, we cannot fight. We should not fight, but there used to be. Especially if we go to Kanchipuram in South India. When Nityanand Prabhu went there to Kanchipuram, so there was one main road, and on one side of that main road was Shiva Kanchi, and the other side was Vishnu Kanchi. So on one side was Lord Shiva's temples, and all these followers of Shankaracharya, they would live there, and on the other side was Vishnu temples, and all the followers of Ramanujacharya would live there. And there would be constant debates between the two groups. And Lord Nityananda, when he went there and he saw all these debates and fights happening, and he just laughed and laughed, and he said, what are these fools doing? They don't know. There is no fight between Krishna and Shiva, or Vishnu or Shiva. So why are their followers fighting? But he laughed and he left. The Nityanand Prabhu, actually, all this traveling to different places of pilgrimage happened before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and before he started his Sankirtan movement. And Nityanand Prabhu did not start preaching until he got the orders from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he did not preach in all his visits to different places. But he was laughing. Why are they fighting? But this fight, it just goes on and on. Anyway, I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Ramanujacharya Maharaj, you said that Lakshman, he was Lakshman.
Yeah.
Okay. And a small
Ram
story I think I heard.
Is a
It was
Ram.
in Tamil Nadu, right, Prabhuji? Was he in Tamil Nadu, Prabhuji? Ramanujacharya.
It's near Chennai. I'm forgetting. Perambuddur, I believe.
Perambuddur. Okay.
Yeah, Shri Perambuddur, yes.
Okay, it's interesting to know, Prabhuji.
Last time when we went there, that's a place where Rajiv Gandhi was killed. It was Perambuddur, right?
Perambuddur.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is the place of Ramanujacharya. Beautiful temple over there.
Ranganathan temple.
Ranganathan is different, isn't it?
Yes, Prabhuji. The Ranganathan Prabhuji is in Trichy. And my parents just visited 3 months back there.
That is where body of Ramanujacharya is kept. And still they show his nails and hair are growing. They have kept him in the Samadhi, but they still show that his nails and hair grow. But Perambuddur is a place where I believe he was born, or he remained there for a long time. He lived there for a long time.
So, Prabhuji, one more question. Ramanujacharya is something like Shankaracharya, they established Shivite Dharma. Is it seen Vaishnava was formed by Ramanujacharya, and then later in 1500 or 1600, that time when Nityananda and Gaur Nitai has come, they formed Gaudiya Vaishnava. Is that correct, Prabhuji?
Yeah, but Ramanujacharya, then I don't know who came first, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and Vishnu Swami. They all established Vaishnava principles. But then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he established Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Chalo, okay. So you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Jai
Jai
Srila
Srila
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
No,